Have you ever felt like you're standing on the edge of a precipice, staring into the unknown, wondering what comes next? We have all been there, caught between where we've been and where we want to go. There is no obvious path in sight. Life's uncertainty can be difficult to bear. Despite all of the uncertainty, one truth remains firm. God knows what comes next for you. Life does not come with a guidebook. We frequently find ourselves wandering through seasons where the future is uncertain, where we don't know what awaits us just around the corner. Uncertainty about what lies ahead can be unpleasant, even paralyzing. We spend so much time attempting to forecast what will happen next, planning every detail so that we may control our future. But allow me to remind you of something significant today. You don't need to know everything. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to venture into the unknown while yet believing that God has your back. We spend so much time thinking about what comes next that we overlook one crucial aspect. God isn't startled by your uncertainty. Life's twists and turns do not surprise him. The unknown is not a source of worry. When we comprehend that God knows exactly what is going to happen to us, he may demonstrate his strength, wisdom, and timing. Think about it. How many times in your life has God led you through something you didn't understand at the time, only to later realize it was exactly what you needed? When you're not sure what comes next, realize that God does. And the best thing we can do in these circumstances is believe that he is already ahead of us, preparing the road. Allow me to tell you something powerful. The unknown isn't your enemy. So often, we believe that ambiguity should be avoided. Something that gets in the way of our tranquility, pleasure, and prosperity. But what if I told you that the one thing we fear the most, ambiguity, is precisely where God's majesty shines brightest? We are all wired to crave assurance. We want to know what happens next. We want to have control. We want the plan spelled out in front of us. But God doesn't work that way. He does not require you to have all the answers. He only needs you to trust him when you don't have them. In times of uncertainty, we grow. When we don't know what comes next, our faith is tested and refined. The instant we let go of our need for control and welcome the uncertainty, we allow God to move in ways we never imagined. God specializes in the unknown. He doesn't require us to see the entire picture. He simply requires us to take the next step in faith, even if we cannot see the next mile. Do you recall the story about Abraham? God instructed him to leave everything behind. He left his family, his home, and his security to travel to a land he had never visited before, a place he knew nothing about. Can you imagine how uncertain he must have felt? However, Abraham stepped out not because he knew what lay ahead, but because he knew who was leading him. And God did not disappoint. The uncertainty became a stepping stone to God's promises. So today, do not be terrified of uncertainty. Embrace it. Because in that place of not knowing, God is waiting to reveal himself to you in a way that will change your life. Accept the unknown with the assurance that the person who holds your future is never lost. You may be sitting here now, feeling as though life is a puzzle with too many missing pieces. You cannot see the entire picture. And it's irritating not knowing how everything goes together. But allow me to tell you something powerful. God has a plan for you. And his plan is much above anything you could possibly devise for yourself. It's easy to become overwhelmed by the world's cacophony. Deadlines, demands, and expectations. We begin to assume that if we don't have everything figured out right away, we've somehow missed the mark. However, trusting God's plan entails knowing that he has already planned your future, even if you can't see it yet. The truth is that God's plan does not require your knowledge. It requires your obedience. We want to know every detail, yet God calls us to take the next step with trust, even when we don't see the path ahead. Think about Joseph from the Bible. His journey was fraught with betrayal, imprisonment, and suffering. God, however, was crafting a plan in Joseph's life that he was unaware of at the time. It wasn't until the perfect time that Joseph was able to look back and find the meaning in his sorrow and hardships. So today, I want you to understand that your life is not a random sequence of events. God has already written the story and is leading you every step of the way. Trust that even when things don't make sense, His plan is still unfolding and guiding you to greater heights than you could have imagined. How many times have you asked yourself, why is this happening now? Why am I still waiting? We frequently struggle with God's timing because it does not match ours. We want answers now. We want improvement right now. But God works on a different timetable than we do. But allow me to remind you of something now. God's timing is consistently perfect, even if it does not make sense to us. We are often impatient, hurrying through life, hoping to reach the next stage, level, or breakthrough. But God's timing is not hastened. It's precise. It's intentional. It is deliberate. Every delay, stop, and waiting season serves a purpose. And what appears to be a setback in your life may be God's way of preparing you for something far greater than you can conceive. Think about David's story. When God anointed him as king, he did not immediately assume the throne. Instead, he spent years running, hiding, fighting battles, and learning to trust God in ways he could not have predicted. David's wait season was not a punishment. It was a preparation. God was shaping his character, strengthening his faith, and instilling the toughness he would require to manage the nation. So, if you're waiting today for a breakthrough, a door to open, or a change to occur, remember this. God's delay does not constitute a denial. It's an indication that He's at work in your life, getting you ready for what comes next. You are exactly where you need to be. And when the time comes, He will open doors that no one can close. Trust in His impeccable timing, because God is never late. He is always on time. How often do we find ourselves praying, asking God for something specific, confident that we know exactly what we need? Perhaps it is a job, a relationship, financial security, or healing. We make our petitions, trusting that God would fulfill them. But what happens when God doesn't respond as we expect? Or when He says, "Not yet"? Here is the truth. God understands your needs better than you. He sees things you can't see and understands what you really need in ways that are much beyond your own comprehension. Sometimes we believe we know what is best for ourselves. But God, in His vast wisdom, understands what we require at the appropriate moment. In the Bible, Jesus says that if we, as humans, can provide excellent presents to our children, how much more will our Heavenly Father give us? What do we genuinely need? The main point here is that God provides us what we need, not always what we want. It's easy to get caught up in wanting things that we believe will please us, things that may appear appealing in the time but may not be the best for our growth and future. Consider the example of the Apostle Paul. He requested God to remove the thorn in his flesh, which was causing him great anguish. But God did not erase it. Instead, Christ informed Paul, "My grace is sufficient for you, because my power is perfected in weakness." 2 Corinthians 12:12. In other words, what Paul perceived as a need was not always what he required most. He definitely needed to feel God's strength in his weakness. When you feel like God isn't responding to your prayers in the way you expected, remember that He knows exactly what you need. Sometimes the things withheld from us are not denials, but divine protection. Believe that God views your needs from an eternal perspective, and that His provision will always be perfectly aligned with your purpose. God will present you with exactly what you need at the right time. When you're going through a period of uncertainty, it's easy to feel stuck or as if nothing is happening. You may be wondering why your breakthrough hasn't happened yet, why your prayers appear unanswered, or why things are progressing slower than you expected. But here is the truth. God is preparing you for blessings that you cannot imagine right now. What you see as waiting is divine preparation. God never wastes a season. Every moment of waiting, every obstacle, every setback is part of His strategy to prepare you for what comes next. You may not realize it at the time, but each step you take prepares you for the benefits God has in store. Think of the Israelites. They wandered in the desert for 40 years, not because God had abandoned them, but because He was preparing them to reach the promised land. The desert experience, however harsh, was important for them to grow in faith, trust on God, and be prepared for the bounty that was to come. The promised land was waiting for them, but they needed to prepare for it. Your benefits may be right around the corner, but God will only release them if you are willing to steward them correctly. God does more than just give you blessings. He prepares you for them. He may be strengthening your character, teaching you patience, or polishing your heart before allowing you to enter the next season. Unseen blessings are being built while you go through the unknown. Don't give up hope while you wait. God is at work in ways you cannot perceive. Even if you don't realize it, He is shaping your future. And when the timing is right, He will shower you with blessings beyond your wildest dreams. Continue to believe and progress, because your preparation is setting you for the upcoming breakthrough. When we make a decision, something significant occurs, and faith triumphed over fear. Fear seeks to paralyze you, make you question your future, doubt your purpose, and second-guess every decision you make. Fear will try to convince you that the unknown is too perilous and dangerous, and that you are unprepared for what lies ahead. Faith, however, involves more than simply acknowledge the uncertainty. It goes into it with confidence, knowing that God is already present. Let's get real. Fear is natural. It is natural to be fearful of what you cannot see, to be concerned about what you cannot control. But here's the key. Fear is a lie. Fear tells you that you are insufficient, that you will fail, and that you are too tiny to face the challenge. But faith reminds you that God is sufficient, that He has gone before you, and that you can accomplish all things through Christ, who strengthens you. Think of Peter walking on water. He stepped out of the boat in the middle of a storm, which seems impossible. For a brief period, his faith kept him on the sea. But the instant he let dread overcome him, he began to sink. Faith keeps you afloat, whereas fear drowns you. To proceed, you do not need to know what comes next. All you need to do is take a step of trust. Faith. Trusting that God is with you, even in the uncertainty. Fear will always try to tell you that you aren't ready or capable. But faith will tell you that with God, you are more than adequate for whatever comes next. The fear of the unknown might hold you back, but faith in the one who holds your destiny can urge you forward, even when you can't see the whole picture. Today, choose trust over fear. Step into the unknown with confidence, knowing that God has already prepared the way. Don't allow fear dominate your actions. Allow faith to lead you to the breakthrough that awaits. There are times in life when you may be unsure about where you are going. You may look at your situation and wonder if you are on the correct track or if you have missed an opportunity. It's easy to become disoriented when the path ahead is unclear. But let me remind you that your destiny is now in God's hands. You're not here by chance. God did not design you for random situations or meaningless wanderings. He knew you from the start, your purpose, your destiny, and the special abilities and talents He had bestowed upon you. Even if you can't see it, your destiny is unfolding according to God's perfect plan. Think of Esther. She was just an average teenager in an exceptional situation, confronting seemingly insurmountable problems and concerns. In the middle of it all, God had a plan for her: to save her people. Esther was first unaware of her role, but when it was revealed, she rose to the occasion. Her purpose was secure, even though she didn't fully comprehend it. Your purpose is also secure. It is independent of your circumstances, faults, or doubts. It is based on the fact that God has already prepared good works for you to complete. Ephesians 2:10. You may not be aware of all the steps ahead, but trust this. The steps you take today will help you fulfill God's purpose for you. Don't let misunderstanding or disappointments make you believe your mission has been lost or delayed. God's plan for you is unshakable. He is working behind the scenes, organizing events and aligning chances to get you to the point where your mission can be completely realized. Trust that in any season of uncertainty. So remain steadfast today, knowing that the job you're doing, even while waiting, is all part of God's broader plan for you. You are precisely where you should be, and nothing can take away the purpose God has already set for your life. Change. It is one of the most intimidating terms in the human language. The prospect of embarking on something new and unexpected can elicit feelings of fear and uncertainty. We are creatures of habit, and when things are familiar, we resist change. But I need you to hear it today. Change isn't your adversary. It serves as a catalyst for your own progress. God does not allow change in our life solely for the sake of shaking things up. He utilizes change to get us ready for larger things. When God changes your circumstances, it does not mean that something is wrong. It indicates that something fresh, something better, is on the way. You may not see it yet, but God knows exactly what He is doing. The change you are frightened of is frequently exactly what you need to get to the next level. Look at Abraham again. When God asked him to leave everything behind and travel to a strange land, Abraham was unsure of where he was going or what awaited him. But he believed that God was guiding him to something better. Change was the gateway to the promise. When faced with change, the temptation is to cling to what is familiar and safe. But God frequently calls us to venture into the unknown because that is where trust thrives. That is where His strength is displayed and where new opportunities and blessings will arise. Don't be scared to let go of the old season. The new one will offer new strength, wisdom, and rewards. Change is not easy. It can be uncomfortable and even painful. But if you believe God is directing you, you may be confident that He will never bring you to a position where there is no purpose. Accept the change. Step forth in faith, knowing that God is using this opportunity to prepare you for something bigger than you can imagine. Do not be terrified of what comes next. God is already present, waiting for you. So many of us believe that our current circumstances determine our future. We look at where we are right now, whether it be a struggle, a setback, or a waiting period, and we begin to believe that this is all there is to life. But hear me clearly today. Your present does not determine your future. Just because you are experiencing difficulties now does not guarantee that this will always be the case. Just because you are going through a difficult time right now does not mean you will remain there forever. God is in the business of changing things around. He specializes in taking seemingly hopeless situations and bringing them to life in ways you cannot comprehend. Think about Joseph. He was deceived by his siblings, sold into slavery, falsely charged and imprisoned. His current circumstances appeared grim, but Joseph did not stay there. He trusted that his current situation was not his last destination. What happened? God used such events to prepare him for greatness. Joseph traveled from prison to the palace, and God used him to save a whole nation. His present did not determine his future. God did. Remember this today. Regardless of what you're going through, your future is in God's hands. Your circumstances may attempt to teach you one thing, but God's plan reveals something far better. You're not stuck. You are being positioned, prepared, and formed to fulfill God's plan for you. Your existing reality is only the beginning, not the end. So don't let your current situation lead you to believe that it will always be the case. God is moving you forward. Your present is only a chapter in the book. It is not the entire story. Keep moving forward, for the greatest is yet to come. Your future is brighter than you realize, and God is already working behind the scenes to lead you to a position of abundance, serenity, and purpose. Don't let today's difficulties convince you that your opportunities are restricted. Your future is infinite with God. Perseverance is often ignored in a world that expects rapid results and quick cures. Perseverance, however, is essential for discovering what God has in store for you. When things are going well, it is easy to start something and become excited about it. However, true progress and breakthroughs occur when you persist in your efforts, even when it appears that nothing is changing. God is concerned not only with the final destination, but also with what occurs along the way. Every step you take, even if it feels like you're not making progress, is part of His flawless plan. Perseverance is more than just enduring difficult circumstances. It is about allowing God to refine you while you wait, struggle, and go through the process. Consider the narrative of the Apostle Paul. He did not have a smooth journey. He was shipwrecked, arrested, assaulted, and insulted. Despite everything, he persevered. Why? Because he knew God was working in and through him, even at the most difficult times. And Paul's tenacity resulted in a mighty ministry that extended to the ends of the earth. If he had quit halfway through, we would not have the letters, encouragement, and teachings that we cherish today. Perseverance means continuing to move forward even when things are difficult. It means you don't give up when the promises appear far or the effort seems unbearable. Perseverance means believing that God is not finished with you yet. He is still working, shaping you, and preparing you for the upcoming breakthrough. So, when you feel like giving up, when the weight of the road seems too heavy, tell yourself that your perseverance will pay off. God is operating in ways you cannot see. And each step of faith you take prepares you for the future He has promised. Keep going. Continue to trust. Because the reward for patience always outweighs the hardship. God honors those who never give up. We live in a world that encourages us to take control, plan every detail, and manage every result. We believe that if we grasp onto the reins of our lives, we can steer our destiny in the direction we desire. But I'm here to tell you something that could make you uncomfortable. True peace comes from letting up of control and following God's lead. The truth is that you were never intended to carry the burden of control. It's taxing, overwhelming, and eventually leads to frustration. We may think we have control, but we don't. Life happens. Things change. Doors close. Let us look at Abraham's example again. God asked him to abandon everything he knew and follow him into the unknown. Abraham didn't have a map, a clear plan, or any promises about what lay ahead. But he did have trust. He let go of his desire to control the outcome and followed God's lead. By letting go, Abraham entered into the greatest blessings of his life. When you give up control, you open yourself up to God's perfect will, timing, and plan. Control provides a false sense of security. It helps us feel safe. But the reality is, God, security is far superior than anything we can make for ourselves. He carries your future, direction, and destiny in His hands. When you let go and trust Him, you are saying, God, I believe you know what is best for me, even when I cannot see it. So today, let go of your demand for control. Give up your goals, concerns, and anxieties, and trust that God will lead you where you need to go. Let go of the weight that isn't yours to bear and watch God work in ways you couldn't have planned on your own. He has it everything under control. All you have to do is follow His lead. Have you ever found yourself dreaming big, thinking about the future, and imagining the best that life has to offer? Despite our greatest efforts, God's intentions for us are always larger, grander, and more magnificent than we can fathom. We can become so focused on our own aspirations that we lose sight of God's grand vision for our lives. Here is the thing. Our dreams are constrained by our experiences, knowledge, and vision. But God sees the entire picture. He understands what you need. He understands how much you can handle. And He understands what will bring honor to His name through your life. What you consider impossible is nothing to God. He can accomplish more in a single moment than we could in a lifetime of striving. Think about Joseph's narrative again. As a young boy, Joseph had enormous dreams. He had a fantasy that his family would submit to him. But God had bigger plans for Joseph than he had imagined. What Joseph didn't realize at the time was that God was preparing him to save a nation and become second in command of Egypt. Joseph's dreams were only the beginning of what God had planned for him. God had a far grander plan than Joseph could have dreamed. Similarly, your goals may appear large to you, but God's plans are much larger. He has a purpose for you that you don't understand. The Bible states in Ephesians 3:3 and 20, "Now to Him who is able to do immeasurably more than we can ask or imagine, thanks to the power that is at work within us." If you could see the wonderful future God has already planned for you, it would astound you. You may not understand it right now, but trust that God is taking you places you never imagined. Locations that will draw you closer to Him and accomplish His larger plan for your life. So remember this the next time you have a big dream. God has much bigger dreams for you. His plans for you are far beyond anything you could ask or anticipate. Trust Him, give up your plans, and believe that the best is yet to come. One of the most common phobias people have in life is the dread of being alone, especially when we're dealing with unexpected or uncertain situations. It's easy to feel alone, navigating the unknown with no one to lean on or encourage you. But hear me clearly today. You're never alone in the unknown. God guarantees in His Word that He will never abandon or forsake you. That implies you are not alone in your moments of uncertainty, seasons of waiting, or steps towards the future. God is beside you every step of the way. Think about the narrative of Moses. When God called Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses was overwhelmed. He questioned his own capabilities, worthiness, and qualifications. But God did not leave Moses to figure things out on his own. God said, "I will be with you." Exodus 3:12. When Moses was in the wilderness, the route ahead appeared difficult, yet God was right there, guiding him, providing for him, and taking him to the promised land. And as God was with Moses, He is with you. When you face life's problems, when you stand on the verge of the unknown, don't ever believe that God has abandoned you. He is right there with you, providing you with love, strength, and wisdom. God knows what lies ahead for you, and He will prepare you for each step of the road. Remember this when you feel lonely, when the road ahead appears uncertain, or when dread rises up to convince you that you're on your own. God is with you. You're not going into the unknown alone. You have a powerful God that walks with you, guides you, and will never leave you. Trust that you are safe in His company and lean into that fact. He had already walked ahead to clear the way, and He will accompany you throughout the journey. When life feels unpredictable, when you don't know what's going to happen next and the route ahead appears murky, it's easy to lose hope. But hope is the anchor that holds your soul steady during life's storms. And God's promises are your greatest source of hope. You see, God's promises are not conditional on your situation. They are unaffected by the ebb and flow of existence. His promises are eternal, unchangeable, and powerful. When you place your faith in what He has promised, you are connected to something far higher than your transient emotions or circumstances. You are anchored in God's truth. The Bible has several examples of God fulfilling His promises in ways that appeared inconceivable at the time. Abraham, Sarah, Noah, and David. Each of them experienced times of doubt when they couldn't predict how things would turn out. They hung on to God's promises, knowing that God is trustworthy and will do what He says. Consider the narrative of the Israelites. They were slaves in Egypt, tormented and almost forgotten. But God had promised to deliver them, even though their current circumstances made it appear impossible. God's promise of deliverance was stronger than their existing situation. He split the Red Sea, led them through the wilderness, and brought them to the land He promised. Today, you may be unable to see the way ahead. You may be in a period of waiting in which the next step is unclear. But God's promises are still valid. He vows never to abandon you, to lead you, to provide for you, and to give you a future full of hope. No matter how tough your circumstances are, remember that God is faithful to keep His promises. So whatever you're going through now, don't give up hope. Hope in God's promises is not only wishful thinking. It is a confident expectation that God's word will be fulfilled in your life. He knows what is ahead for you, and He is committed to seeing it through. Your future is safe in His hands. Keep your faith in His promises, for the best is yet to come. I want you to take a time to reflect on where you are in life right now. Perhaps you are confronting uncertainty. Perhaps you're at a crossroads. Perhaps you are merely waiting. It's easy to become overwhelmed and feel as if you're going blindly through life, ignorant of what lies ahead. But I'd want to remind you of something that will shift your outlook. Today, God knows exactly what comes next for you. You might not have all of the answers, and that's fine. But you've got something better. You have a God who knows the end from the start. A God whose designs are larger than yours. A God who walks with you, guides you, and prepares you for what lies ahead. Remember this when your life feels uncertain. God is operating behind the scenes. You are not alone in the unknown, and you do not have to figure everything out on your own. His timing is impeccable. His ideas are perfect, and His love for you is unwavering. Every hardship, setback, and season of waiting does not imply that God has forgotten you. It indicates that He is preparing you for something larger. He refines you, strengthens your faith, and prepares you for the benefits He has for you. You may not see it right now, but God is working in ways you may not yet understand. So let go of your fears and doubts and believe that God's promises are genuine. You are on a journey, and while you may not know every step ahead, you can be confident that God does. His intentions for you are greater than you can fathom, and the greatest is still to come. Continue to walk with faith, even if you can't see the route forward. God knows what comes next for you, and His plans for your life are full of meaning, peace, and a brighter future than you can ever imagine. Finally, no matter where you are today, know that your tomorrow is in God's hands. He knows what's next for you, and if you put your trust in Him, He'll take you somewhere you never thought possible. Keep faith, hope, and know that your future is safe in His hands.